Okay, now we are officially live. Okay, we're gonna technically roll the show out in just a second. So I'm gonna go to because it's gonna give them. I usually play the intro and allow people time to come in, but we're gonna skip the intro and I'm gonna just share it out real quick and allow people to come in.
Yeah.
So let me just share it to the 10 or so spots in the network. Let's see, group, no page. Yeah, I'm still like I'm about three quarters on planet right now. I woke up the last few days totally off planet.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so we got 9 people in the house. We're having a delay today, people. Thank you for coming in. We've had some technical problems, but everything's worked out now. We are blessed with Wanda Vitale here today. We're going to have a good conversation on some real time intel, see what she's up to and what she's getting into, and just see what comes up. If these shows resonate with you, please share because we're getting hammered by the social media, but that's okay. We're working on solutions for that. And thank you for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing what we're doing. We're here as a free community service, and we are totally 100% viewer supported, and whatever we can pick up from the things we do on the road, such as the gathering we had a couple days ago. 26 people in the house. Spread the word, please. Good to see everybody. Angela Breakerhoff, long time no see. We'll be seeing you in Texas, I'm thinking in May. And Kyle Walter in Australia. As soon as I get my passport issues worked out, and we'll go to Australia maybe later this year, next year. So we have a beautiful sister, Wanda Vitale, with us today. She's been on a couple of times before. We went to a retreat. She was so nice to invite Morgan and I at Mount Shasta. Um, the name of the group is, what is the name of the group? I get it confused with another one. It's, you're
Oh,
not, um, hang on,
what?
I'll find,
Whose
huh?
group? My
Your
group?
group. Yes. What is
Well,
your, which one
um,
is it? Oh, you have more than one now.
well, I have a couple groups. I'm actually transitioning everything to the quantum entrepreneur.
Oh, okay. So you're
Um,
okay. Let's hold that thought. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So the other one is being phased out.
Well, now
Yeah.
I've had a private group for a few years, the Diamond Path. So they're really two
Okay.
distinct things we can
Oh,
talk.
I think of your group, the one from Shasta. That's the one
Oh, that's what you're talking about. We call that Alive in the
oh,
Mystery.
yeah, Alive in the Mystery. So Alive in the Mystery, we I try to share some of the shows to Alive in the Mystery and converse with. There's a group of people in there that got together in Shasta when Teresa and you did this. And maybe before that, these retreats. So I just wanted to kind of like connect you to that. All right,
Yeah.
we got 44 in the house now. That's a good number. Shanine says Juan is an absolute star boss. We
Aw,
will
so sweet.
agree with that.
She's one of the new young leaders for
Yeah.
the world. Yep, Shanine. Yep, absolutely.
So okay. So now you live in New Mexico.
Hmm.
You are when you are fusing entrepreneurship with the awakening. There's so many things that we're fusing and integrating, polarities and such, and and there's not an owner's manual. I always say that there's an owner's manual for the 3D and there's one for the 5D, but there's not one for in between. So this, I guess,
Well,
is what we're
you
doing.
know, yeah, I mean, really, let me turn my volume up here. Yeah. My life has always been about um, waking up from the dream. I didn't come in awake. I've not had an NDE, so you know, I went the hard way. There were a lot of us early indigos that took the hard path to make it easier for everybody else. So my core wound was money and survival. So 30 some years ago, about 30 years ago, when I just really wanted somebody to save me, like I know what it's like not to have money. 30 years ago, I had moved, I just wrote a post about this. I had moved to another state. I'd moved to Phoenix from Minneapolis, and just for a company, I'd used just about everything I had to get down there and get relocated. And then the company got bought, and I had no
Mm.
job. So I had no job. Phoenix was kind of a cow town in 1992, and and there was nobody to help me, nobody to save me. And so I started the Course in Miracles, which is really, that's what we had then before any of this other stuff got popular. And I had met somebody on an airplane who turned out to be like my surrogate father. My father died when I was really young, and really wealthy man living in Hollywood Hills, who, would have been so easy for him to just say, here's some money to help you. What did he tell me? The only security we ever have, Wanda, is the security that to the is the security in knowing that we always create what we need.
Mm.
So this was my introduction to living in the quantum field, except I didn't know what it was called. So this is kind of my work, right? And I, had my galactic experiences later, and I'm galactic, very galactic, Zeta, and there's a lot of us here. A lot of my clients are galactics.
Mm.
We're holding the higher vision of what's possible. And so since I have a business background, managing people, just big business, and then bringing this understanding that anything is possible. I mean, I have learned this the hard way, but it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So, that's why I'm really putting all my efforts into a program and a public page. I'm going to
Yeah.
interview you, called the Quantum Entrepreneur,
The
because
quantum.
the Quantum Entrepreneur, because there are, like Shanine and so many other people that you've already had on your show that have been my clients. The world needs everybody to
Yeah.
go out and speak their truth. And I think Alan Watts said, we don't need poor gurus.
No.
Really, struggle is an option.
Yeah.
We can go through what we go through, and it doesn't have to feel so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting proposition because like you, I spent many years in the corporate world at a senior exec level, national level, regional, divisional. I also had started with my own businesses, and then later on went into consulting and buying and selling businesses and building and turnarounds and startups and all that. Raising money and all the stuff that goes with what we might, just for the sake of the discussion, we might call 3D, right? Well, because that's all
Mhm.
we knew at the time.
Yeah.
But quantum entrepreneurship, it has a different frequency. And I know you and I talked about this, and I've talked about this with a lot of people for the last couple of years off and on, because one of the things I downloaded in the whole Soulogy network that I'm still trying to piece together, and having a universal cast and what the platform is and what the role of it is. A big part of it came in the summer of 2018, and they started talking to me. This was the Arcturian Nine Mind, I think is what they called themselves.
Mm.
When they came in the first night, there were also some other star family representatives there. There was Alpha Centaurian, Assyrian, and a couple other, I can't remember all the details, but anyway, so what they told me was that part of the role of Soulogy was to introduce a 5D commerce frequency. And so I have spent really 8-9 years now, but I mean probably about going on 2 years trying to launch this network. Now, up to that point, there were 4 or 5 times that I tried to structure Soulogy, which had, as it evolved, had different pieces added to it. And the thing is that every time I tried to apply the old school stuff that I was very good at, I was an expert at, I was the best in my industry, which was a very large industry, the largest small industry in the country. Um, I was a very good strategist. I was a very good planner, forecaster, budgeter. I always brought the most money to the bottom line as a percentage of gross revenue and all that stuff. right? But what I found was every time I started to structure it, it would blow up. It was almost like, and I thought, well, what is this? My own resistance. Da, da, da. But anyway, so long story short, there is something's happening. I'm a big believer that we're writing a new template. We're working with the old, working with anything that was existing before we got here, such as say the Atlantis technology template or whatever the case is. And so we are actually aware enough now that we can now anchor those templates and now begin to expand them and turn our setback of, well, not a setback, but I like that old saying, turn a setback into a comeback, but turn our experience, which was very dense. There was pain, there was suffering, like you said, there was lack, and all that stuff, and convert that, transform that into this higher frequency in all its aspects, which includes abundance, which we obviously with our journey associate to some degree money. It's not a bad word.
No.
So what I'm getting at is what I'd like to get into is, what's it been like for you? Because I know we come from the same place. I
Mhm.
know that we come from what was an alpha male dominated frequency.
Mhm.
Whether you're a man or a woman, you had to make certain conformities in order to excel. I know you excelled. I know I excelled. Then there's also this awakening and all the stuff that's happened in the last 15, 20 years. And now how do we incorporate, how do we integrate, the two extremes? And the last thing I'll say, just to kind of lead into it, we've watched a lot of people that many of them who'd been out there for many, many years, okay, who were using what was available, which was the old template. I'm going to charge this, I'm going to charge that. Then you had other people who were the other extreme that said, I'm not going to charge anything because the universe will, damn me to hell or whatever, right? And then there was a lot of stuff in I'd say the last 18 months where you had people flipping from one to the other. And then
Right.
you had a lot of conversation about, hey, I have value. That's part of this trip is the self-love and the self-value. So I don't know where it is now. I know the math has changed. I know the equation is being evolved. But what's your experience been like? Because I know you work with a lot of people, and in your own right as well. What's it been like?
Well, this is, I how do I describe this? This is what I would say for me personally. Before that retreat in Mount Shasta in September, one of my mentors, old mentors, maybe, I don't know how long ago, 12, 15 years ago, I worked with Lauren Zimmerman, who's also very galactic.
Yeah.
So Lauren messaged me and said, hey, one of the folks that she works with wants to work with you. So net, before we hit Shasta, I was taken to what I thought was the Hall of Records below Shasta, but it wasn't. I don't even know what it's called because I don't care. Like, I don't care about a lot of stuff. I want to be happy and have fun. I'm really simple, right? So I was taken to the Galactic Hall of Records, and it just opened up this bigger knowing in me that of what is locking in within me, what's really going on, so that I can honestly say that after I got back from Shasta, it took maybe a month or 2 months, but I walked out of the matrix. Like, I walked out. I
Now
am not.
this was when
Last
was
year.
this was it when we okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't know, if it
So
was,
you went into the Shasta retreat and you came out of it and you just said, I'm done.
well, I got it, and I don't really know what caused it, but I
Yeah.
can tell you that I no longer get distracted. I just don't get distracted by what is. So what I know is that I just see it so clearly. Um, we're these vast fields of energy, and reality is just we each have a hologram, and it's a projection. And I know this sounds so simple, but it really is. We project through our beliefs, through our minds, and expectations, a reality and an outcomes. Well, I came out of Shasta really knowing, feeling viscerally, none of this is real. It's already done. There are just a lot of people that are really focused on ascension and Gaia's ascension. It's already done. I think Matt Kahn has said that for as years. A lot of people have. So what if it, what if we just get to, what if we just get to do whatever feels good? What if it's about that? And what if this period that we've been in, to speak to what you've just been through, is really just to clean out any remaining belief systems that we have about struggle, about what we think, how we think things should be, right? To kind of
Yeah.
clear out our old beliefs and then just get ready for these there's new galactic energies that are streaming in right now that are going to
Yeah.
support, that are supporting what you're talking about and my
Yeah.
work too. So because we're not in this alone, we may be, you know, we may be operating in these separate little holograms, but there is a plan. You know, like we're just a bunch of bubbles. What we experience, my guides show it to me like a lot of little bubbles, but somebody's blowing the bubbles,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's the thing, that, you know, these energy downloads come in, and for people who are still feeling their trauma, because that's part of it, you've got to
Yeah.
feel it, you don't have to believe the stories, that we're all connected to this big spiral that's happening.
Yeah.
So for you, I think, and for me, right, I think there's been I've gotten really clear, like, I don't know about you, Todd, but I've gotten really clear on what my message is. I've gotten really clear on who I am and who I'm not. And I've gotten really clear on what makes me different than anybody
Yeah.
else out there,
Yeah.
and what I'm here to do, or what I'm here to do is to have fun, but I'm really clear on who I can help and what they look like, and to know when they're ready.
Yeah. I think this is good. Okay. So one, I like the fact that this is starting to be talked about, so we move away from competition and comparisons, superiority, inferiority. This is a unity consciousness. Oneness is oneness. There is no middle ground between that and separation. And that's really being drilled down in so many ways, but we're talking business here. We're just going to talk business.
Yeah.
And so, it's a, that you can say, look, I know what my role is. I know what my piece of the puzzle is. This is my uniqueness. That is my contribution. And this is what I see people starting to come to. I'm
Yeah.
totally in alignment with everything that you're saying and experiencing, because it's the same path.
Yeah.
And so I'm at a place where it's really interesting because last year I was doing a show with Vera Ingeborg,
Mm-hmm.
and we've done many, many shows together. And on this particular show, I was in Hawaii, and we were in one of the many phases of, you know, strategizing to launch this network and how do we do it. And because I have been told, and I have applied this to really everything in terms of the aspects of my own transition, relationships, business, whatever. And that has been, they've told me, or the team told me from the early 8, 9 years ago, whatever you do, you can't do what's been done before. It has to be something different and new, which can be a remix. It can be a hybrid. It can be a combination of frequencies, of pre-existing templates or whatever, but it has to be something new. And it's over time, I've learned to understand that more and more and more. I'm not always comfortable with it. And I get a little agitated sometimes, and I want to get the cart before the horse sometimes. But over and over again, what's been happening, I'm only relaying this because I'm trying to get to this. I'm working in the same venue that you are. You know what I mean? So on this show with Vera, she said something that wasn't related. Well, it was actually. I said, you know what? I feel it. I can taste it. I can touch it. The network's got to go now. And she said, Todd. And I said, I got to do this. I got to do that. And she said, Todd, well, maybe you don't have to do anything. Maybe what you're feeling is the alignment that you're coming into. And rather than going in, because as a human, the human aspect feels like, oh, well, I've got to go do this. So since that point, I've slowly but surely detached from, if somebody says you have to do this or you need to do that, I'm like, F that. I don't got to do shift, you know? I'm not I'm
Right.
not in that space anymore. But now, so here we are again, and it's I don't have the answer, to be honest with you. I'm looking for it, and so it's kind of like, okay, I know I can't force anything, and I'm open to the idea that I'm actually moving into this alignment, and that's what I'm feeling, and I don't really have to do anything, which is really weird. Okay, now if I look at the last 6 months that Morgan and I have been on the mainland, including your retreat, everything fell in front of us. Everything was put right in front of us, not just in sequential order of you're going to go do this and you're going to go do that, but in geographically laid out.
Mhm.
So how does that happen? So I
Well,
think it's,
that's
I
just the
think,
way it works. I
yeah.
mean, that is because we're moving away from the old reality of, pushing rocks uphill and action for the, hamster wheel action for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of action to energy's here to serve me. My job as the individuated aspect of all that I am is to focus on the feeling, we're the magnets, right? We focus this energy. This is what my guides have said ever since they started to come through me, which is when we get our minds out of the way, that resistance of right, wrong, good, bad, this way, that way, attachments, when that's gone, we become a fully functional member of the higher dimensional team.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our function is to do just what you're talking about. It's the alignment. And then we're like magnets. This
Yeah.
is what this is the work. This is where people get thrown off because the mind says, well, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? That's
Yeah.
like pushing it away.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't know when it's going to happen, but I
Yeah.
live the way you're talking about.
Yeah.
Things come to me. My job is to be curious and not to get, and my job is just to get curious about things. My job is to, I do these exercises. I've got a group going on right now. And I posted last night one of the experiments from Pam Grout's book. She's got a couple of books, E squared and E cubed. And where you claim something like, okay, universe, which is us, give me something that's going to knock my socks off, that's totally unexpected in 48 hours, and I'm going to look for it, right? So we do things like that. We look for the good stuff. What do most people do? They look for all the things that are wrong in
Mm.
every, so we got to look for the good stuff. And then you know what? We always find what we're looking for. So I have no idea what the big surprise is going to be for me, but I know there's one coming.
Yeah.
And that's how we live. We train our minds to look for the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We train our minds to live in our hearts, to follow what feels resonant in our, fully resonant in our bodies, right? When we have to make a decision, we follow the path that has the highest excitement. And then things just come to us.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought my business would be farther along too. But you know what? I redid my website last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sending an email to my web guy now. I'm more changes. We're changing my URL. So I just see this as we're getting really clear about how energy works. And when we understand how energy works, then we work with it. And then, like, all this stuff comes up. Like, all this stuff just, your funding comes. One of the things that I want to do with the Quantum Entrepreneur, I'm starting a public uh, page, and I'm going to start streaming interviews. I've signed up for Spreaker to do podcasts
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many people out there in the spiritual community that have the beliefs that say, well, I can't leave my day job, like, or I can't make enough money to support myself, I like my house. They just, or we've heard it all, right? Like all
Yeah.
these, they're just ideas. They're just ideas. And there are just as many people out there in the world who are not from our community, the spiritual community, that have lived the worst lives and come out on top. Um, there's a,
From the spiritual community or from both?
they're from both,
Yeah, from both. Yeah.
because I think we need to get this. So I think one of the ways we limit what we talk, that we limit what's possible, is when we just have this audience, like the audience on Facebook, that like my peeps are, hey, they see energy, they're galactic, that's just every day to them.
Mm,
But there's
mm,
so many other people that are like us that don't have this basis for language. They're
mm,
attorneys and they're doctors, and you know, they just have come through the fire walk like you and I have. I call it the fire walk, and I call where we are the last mile. That's what I say. I work with people
mm,
who are on the last mile. Like I
mm.
have tried everything else. My way ain't working. I
Yeah.
don't care what it takes.
Well, and
Here,
I think, and I find this interesting too. I was actually talking to Morgan about this morning. Now, let me just preface it real quick. 5 years ago, when I met her, one of the first things she told me, I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about the subject of ascension, or I was awake, but I was doing my own thing, focusing on Soulogy. And she said the key word in the ascension is reset. And I've never forgot that, because there's nothing wrong. Like, you're starting your website over. Veer and Augusti blown up, fast forward 3 times, Soulogy's been blown up like 18 times and restarted. But, the thing is, I totally get what you're saying. Uh, Everything is changing. Every single thing. Our relationships are changing. Our circle of friends are changing.
mhm,
Our vocations are changing. One of the things that really seems to be paramount, if not absolute top priority, is the self-awareness and self-reliance and self-responsibility.
yep,
Another way to put that is, uh, you know, uh, I got a phone call last night, this is going on, that's going on. I said, hey, it's none of my business. Okay. I love you unconditionally, but none of my business. Okay. I've got staying on my game,
mhm,
you know, is a full-time job. And
yep,
I think we've given away a lot of our energy and some of the patterns that are built into the patriarchal 3D business and financial commerce system. Exchange, particularly, is based on a inadequate and no longer useful codependent frequency. So now we move into this equal exchange, the universal method of exchange in the multiverses that doesn't apply in this fishbowl of the realm until now. How do we get there? So this is where I think we are actually creating a higher frequency, something that the universal family can actually gain from, because we're not just gaining from them, they're gaining from us. And that's why we are carrying the stature and the reverence in the community that we are. Now, what I'm getting at is, how do we establish value in this trip where value is the barometer? Because the more self-love we have, the more self-value, self-respect, honor, and reverence we have, uh, you know, the the more everything expands. Everything's parallel to that. So how do we establish value? Do we just, and I don't mean to downplay this, because it's primarily my approach, and I don't know that it's right, but when in doubt, I am told and I understand, just put it out there. We pull up here Tuesday, first time we've had internet. We look like we're gonna have internet for 50 straight days. And so, it's three, then five, then three yesterday, and five today. That's what, that's 16 shows
mhm,
in 4 days, in an event. Okay. So anyway, put it out there and have complete faith and trust and belief, different kind of belief, 5D belief,
right,
that it's all going to come back to you. Example, if occasionally I might do a session with somebody, that's not really my cup of tea. and somebody says, or can you help me with this or help me with that? And they say to me, how much will you charge? And I said, look, just, when we're done, if it resonates, just make a contribution to Soulogy for
Mhm.
whatever suits you, whatever you can, whatever it is, if it's zero, it's zero, whatever. Now, I'm not saying that's the right way. But when I set a price, when I don't know how that works, because if I set a price, am I am I carrying a frequency of too much or too little? You know what I mean? So I don't
Well,
know. Have
yeah,
people come to you with that dilemma?
yeah, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that this is, we just got to figure it out where as we go. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff. When you're fully awake, when you're awake in a world and you're not believing your mind anymore, that's just one little piece of it. This is what I talk to my folks in my group about. This is what we've talked about. Okay, but you're in a world that isn't awake. They still believe all these stories. They still believe in lack. They don't realize that in every moment they're pulling rabbits out of hats, and that rabbit can show up in the form of money.
Mm,
So that's the thing that we each have to look at, right? I do. I mean, I found, was it 2 years ago? I thought, oh, I just got the hit to like give me whatever donation for a session. And when I think then what was coming through me were the full diamond activations and soul blueprint activations. But most of those people, I mean, I know that I planted a seed, but they didn't stick with it, right? They just didn't stick with it. So they let their minds derail them. So now I'll set a price, but I also do so much pro bono work. I
mm-hmm,
do, if people can't afford it, payment plans, pay me later.
mm-hmm,
I mean, that's just how I am. And I think that's what we have to navigate in the moment of what it looks like. You got to remember, this is your hologram. There
mm-hmm,
is, business is no different. In my groups, we take these basic principles and we apply them to our businesses. Who is your ideal client? What do they feel like? And then when we talk, marketing, what does that feel like? Get your beliefs out of the way. And then also this whole thing of value, right?
mm-hmm.
It's when we talk about value, it's, do I value, what does it look like when I value myself? How does that feel? It's still what you just said earlier. There is no out there. There is no
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
Everything that we're giving, if we give ourselves what it is that we're looking for, it shows up.
yeah. And
So,
that's where that the it's almost like okay, so you have your old, not old in a bad way, but your pre-existing, let's just say, mathematical equations.
mhm,
And it's like something has been introduced. Now this is part of the galactic thing, right? Like some of what I've gotten and picked up on these shows as well has been that there are certain templates coming from this planet or this
right.
star system, that star system, that are being fed to us, which very well could be what I received from the Arcturians as an example.
Mhm,
And the basis of that example was, okay, taxes. Taxes do not uh they're not in my universe.
mhm,
I know many, many other people that this is occurring, but how do you do that? So the message was gifting. If you gift, you can't tax it, right? So, and if there's like a tsunami of this frequency and this methodology, then there's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. So, as an example, now that goes totally counter to everything that is pre-existed. So I look at Vera and Augusti, and we've been very connected to them for a couple of years. So we bounce things off each other. I've watched them evolve. There's some things that seem to be more easily and graceful with us, and then vice versa. But one of the things that really stands out is the way that they've really let go of all of this stuff. They've
Mhm.
let go of everything. They've let go of borders. They let go of, you know,
Right.
you know what I mean? And so there is a magic to that. There, we were here Monday, and so we didn't have anywhere to go. And I'll be up front. Somebody gifted us an RV for a month. The second
Mm,
month we've got to pay rent. I paid it. Nothing's left. Where are we going to go? And I come and do an interview, and a lady says, "You know what? You can broadcast from here for the next, 7 weeks, and you can plug in your RV." These
yeah.
things are happening. They're literally happening in the moment. And what it does to me is like it blows the whole thing out of the water. And I start to go, wait a minute, is Soulogy about my collective contribution? This is just taught as an individual, or is it about me? Do I need to let go, let go, let go? Am I in resistance? Am I in judgment? Am I attached? And surrender, 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 surrender. I don't
Yep.
have to do anything. But what I do know is like what you said earlier, which is what I love what you said, because we know what doesn't work. We
Mm,
know what doesn't work. So if I try to structure this thing and I set this up and set that up and create these absolutes in my universe as within without, and what I'm finding is in my own personal trip and in my relationship with the dual communion that we have is that we have you mentioned this earlier, we have a tremendous amount of support. And that support is not only the miracles that fall in front of you as you surrender and embrace, but it's also the things that you're not allowed to do.
mhm.
And so, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
paying attention, not just to, oh, wow, this opportunity just appeared, you know, but also, hey, this isn't working. And if it's causing you angst, like, God damn it, why isn't this working? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
If that's, then that's kind of a red flag that in the past wasn't the same type of red flag. Because in the past it was like, okay, we've got to strategize, we got to mold this thing and set it up. Now it's more like, okay, that's not working.
Now it's like, well, I wonder what's going to show up next. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, you have so many guests that are bringing in amazing information, and it's just not my job. I see this stuff. I'm on ships at night. It's just not what I'm here to bring through.
Mhm.
What I know, but I know this. I see it. I know it like I know that this is the illusion of my zeta hand here, that we each have within us, in our crystalline, in our DNA. We have that undistorted, what I call the Eden blueprint.
Yeah.
And that's the plan. That's the magnet for the orchestration. And all we are doing is getting the distortions, getting the ideas, getting all that shit out of the way so that we can magnetize with these other non-physical aspects what we're here to do. I mean, I've always said that when I didn't even wasn't this as clear as I am now. We each came here for a reason. That's it. And all we do, all we've done over these last many years is get our heads out of the way,
Hmm.
and so that that can start to happen. And everybody's on a different schedule. I just rankle when I read energy forecasts that are one size fits all,
Well, I
because
mean,
it's not. But
I've always felt, and I could be wrong. I'm not being arrogant. I was going to say, but I don't think so. But this stuff that we're pulling down, whoever you are, and however many people follow you or don't follow you or whatever the hell,
yeah,
it's for us first. It's for the
oh, yeah,
individual first. Now,
because
as
it's our
individual,
hologram.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
So,
I mean, that none of this is real. Let me just interrupt, hold that thought. Because when you wake up from the dream and really wake up, you are not this body. It is like
mm,
watching a movie. You don't take it so seriously. I was thinking this morning how when you don't take any of it so seriously anymore, because you feel in your, however people, whatever word they would describe, but viscerally, that
Mhm.
you are this vast field of energy, and none of this is really real. It's just truly smoke and mirrors.
Mhm.
We're just exploring and having fun. So it's not about, like, people think the earth needs to be saved or the Gaia is not going to ascend. It's not real, and it's
Mhm.
already done, and we're just experiencing it. So
Mhm.
of course, when you're downloading that stuff, it is for you. It is
This
for
is
you.
a
It's
this is a very good point.
exciting.
This is a very good point. I want to open up something. I've not heard anyone talk about this. Okay. So I get what you're saying. I tend to have a little bit of an issue with the statement, not just you, because many people have said it to me, including my beloved wife many times. This isn't real. And I'm like, well, you know what? Then what the fuck are we doing here? Okay. I think it's real. Now, I understand I'm in a video game. I understand I have a higher self and multidimensional aspects, but
Yep.
everything is real. Everything is real in terms of expansion of the universe. Now, this is just me talking. But what you brought up that I think is fascinating, okay, for me, this is in my own head, has been everything it's not real. Now, so I look at anything external as it's me now, right? I mean, in anything external, that's why I have trouble at night now. Like, if I lay down in bed, like I've been alone for the last few days and it's been pure hell, I can't sleep without her, but I lay in bed and I try to connect, and I'm like, who the hell am I trying to connect to? Myself? I mean,
Right.
I've seen dragons and I've had galactics materialize in the whole 9 yards, but these were aspects of me. Now, what I'm getting at is this: the recent intel, not just what I receive or what we've received together, but what I've been seeing out there in the work I do, has been, okay, it's time to step up. Number one,
Mhm.
you've got enough information now, shit or get off the pot, and let's get to work. What you said earlier in the show, you've been given enough information, all of you, to know what your mission is and your purpose. You're supported. You've done enough shadow work. Now align the body and embody this fully, because the body's the last thing left. Now,
Right.
at the same time, there seems to be a galactic push, like
Mhm.
the galactics are here. Well, what's the difference between the galactics and anything else external? I feel a part of me, and I just want to get your feedback on this. I
Yeah.
feel a part of me like there is a purpose here that has to do with the transformation collectively, of course, individually and collectively, of this realm into a higher frequency or higher dimension. But at the same time, I can kind of poo poo it away and say, well, it's not even real. So I'm not going to pay attention to them
Well,
anymore. I don't
so
know where it goes.
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean, for me to say, well, it's not really real. If somebody would have told me that when I was in the depths of my trauma, I just would have probably slapped them. It
Yeah, right.
feels real, right? It feels real, but we set it up that way. One of
Yeah.
the things,
That's
right? We set it up that way. One of the things that happens in this dying process that so many people have gone through. I went through it before the end of the year. I mean, we all go through a lot of little deaths, but I went through a big death. And in fact, where I asked a friend, did I die and nobody told me? It is really like, you just go totally offline. Your body isn't connected. Nothing's connected. You're just hovering, lost in space. So then, then the next thing is that it feels, that's really when I really popped out of the matrix.
yeah.
I just got off track. So what I'm trying to say is, when we go through that dying process, what's been pretty typical, I hear from my clients and folks like me, that other senses come online.
Yeah.
We're very limited. What, five in the body? What, five senses? So what happens when these galactic energies stream in? Other senses come online.
Yeah.
Yeah, the galactics are us.
Well,
They
that's what I mean.
are us.
Yeah,
Every
that's what I'm.
We
Yeah.
exist multidimensionally.
Well, but you make reference to Zeta, and a lot of people make reference to certain star family lineage,
It's
and
just a word. It's
yeah,
just a
yeah, I
word.
know. Yeah, no, I'm not picking on anyone. I'm just trying to say, okay, so you put it in terms of senses, right? I might say code. Okay, code is, or DNA is activated. You know, junk DNA is activated, whatever. So I guess my question is, and I don't have the answer. I'd love to. I'm curious, like you. So it's like, okay, the past life memories carried code. They served a purpose. We learned not to be attached to I was the son of Jesus or whatever the case was. The galactic, let's just say, and I think that's past as well, but to say the galactic future, forward progressions, the connections and stuff carry code too. The traumas we had in this incarnation carried code. Our ancestral lineage carried code. All that stuff. Once the code is delivered, is part of the next step, and doesn't have to be answered today, but is part of the next step to detach from all of that. Because what's the difference between over identification with a past life memory or a galactic connection, and what's the difference between that and a trauma that we had in this incarnation? You know, I mean, I'm
Oh,
just wondering
true.
if the step up, you know what I mean? I'm wondering if the step up that we're quantum now. So I'm wondering if the step up, if we can, if not if, but when we achieve that step up, that may or may not be detaching from anything external and being totally into ourselves and therefore each other. But I'm wondering if when that step happens, does the conversations and the strategizing and the planning and the how to with things like 5D commerce and things like a new business exchange and all those relationships and all those things, if it just takes care of itself, you know, I don't know.
Well, I guess that's, yeah, I mean, that's what I find in my own life that, you know, how can I say this? It sounds so dry, but the intel I get is pretty dry. It's basically physics and new physics,
Yeah.
dumbed down so that my brain can understand it. Whatever we focus on, we get more of. And that sounds
Yeah.
so outrageously simple that people
Yeah.
do not want to believe that.
Yeah.
I find, and when I work with people, this is what we do. We either think about all the stuff that's wrong and we have to figure it out, which says something is wrong here if
Right.
we have to
Right.
figure it out, or we go to, oh my God, something amazing is going to happen. Oh my God, I just cannot wait until I can feel what you described. I can feel my business. I can feel the resonance in my body. And then we just do what we're guided to do and things take care of themselves. I finished in December, finally closing out a very long, ugly estate for a
Mm.
friend that passed away. And there was just one big problem after another. IRS does not like, and there was a business to shut down, and I didn't
Mm.
know it, but there was a $200,000 debt for 401k for employees. IRS
Mm.
does not like that, baby, let me tell you. So, you know, instead of going into micromanaging, I just do what I teach people to do, and which it's so simple, which is, how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? And then the pieces just fall into place so that when we do take action, it's the next logical step. And I maybe said this before, but I saw many attorneys in that because I don't have a degree. I mean, my background is, you know, like yours, national account sales. I'm not an attorney or a CPA, but I saw several attorneys who said, this is bad. IRS will do anything. They could just, you know, blah, 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 but none of it was true.
Yeah.
So I think that so I would say this stuff takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's where I'm going. That's where I don't want to run out of time because I want to make sure that we
yeah.
go through what you're doing. We got about 7 or 8 minutes. What you're doing and where people can find you. But yes, I'm getting to that point where what you just said, and that is that, because again, it's an all or nothing proposition. You know, it really is. There's truth and then there's what's not true. You know, and so again, these things that have come into our lives that present themselves to us that we've all over identified at one time or another, whether it be a trauma or a galactic connection or a past life memory, who I was this person or I was that person. It has a usefulness. It carries a code. I sat down here when I got here Tuesday night, and I got slammed onto the couch. I would describe it as the mother goddess consciousness or energy started speaking to me and educating me on some things. This was me speaking to me, right? Now, it was very profound. I could not physically get off the couch for 2 hours, and I saw some things and all that. But once I took it in, I absorb it, it washes over me, into me, opens code to me, whatever, I move on. Right. I mean, I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying, as a microcosm of what you're describing, because we're energy, is maybe we're moving, maybe this step up isn't, oh, get to work, oh, do this, oh, do that. Because everyone seems to be in a hurry right now, because I get a lot of messages from people. And that's okay, because it's just indicative of the frequency
Right.
in this part of the transition. So my thing is like, I wonder if the step up is just more detachment, dealing with our resistance, dealing with our judgment, and really, when you get right down to thine own self be true, and from the brutal honesty of the soul, dealing with your own BS, and the things that we tell ourselves, right? Because they go deep, and they're going deeper, and the more awareness we have, we find it deeper, 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 and deeper. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No,
but
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
no, no. I just wanted to say that because this is why I love this, and this is why I believe that our highest transmissions, downloads, channelings, and activations actually come from these conversations that we can have with each other, especially the more people that are involved, because it's a quantum kind of reaction, it's an exponential reaction. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this is yet to be determined. you
I
know,
think this is like,
yeah.
this is the phase that we're in. This is, it's just a very different phase. This is what I talk, again, this is what, we talk about in my group. If you're awake and nobody else is, well, do you climb down in that pity hole with them? What do you
Yeah.
do, for instance, right? Or
Mhm.
what does it mean exactly? I did want to say that what you're saying is exactly how I see it.
Yeah.
So many, one of the big hurdles that people have to get past is living in the unknown, right? The unknown is where all the magic is. Our brains, this is what you just described, our brains get pinged with, we get these downloads, whether we're conscious of them or not, because not everybody is, not everybody's that clear as
Mhm.
to know that they get downloads. But our brains we get the downloads, and then we unpack them so that when it's time to know something, your brain can go, and it feels like an idea. Oh, I think I'll
Mhm.
do this, or
Mhm.
something comes to you,
Yeah,
right?
no doubt.
That's how it
Yeah,
works.
no doubt.
People have
Yeah, no doubt. These things pop in your head, and I'm not talking about like the gnawing, crawl in your stomach, kind of,
yeah,
you got to do this and you're not good enough. I'm talking about these things that just pop in your head. Like this morning, I'm like, Yeshua, Magdalene, the Essenes. I'm like, well, okay, wait a minute. Dolores Cannon. I mean, it's like, okay, all right. There's a reason these things are coming in my head. So yeah, and that's another part of it too. It's that free flow kind of intuitive telepathic, whatever you want to call it, beehive intelligence thing, byproduct that feeds, or it's the monkey thing, but
yeah.
I don't
And,
want to run out of time. I want to make
well,
sure
I just want to
now.
say this. I just want to say one more
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, 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 go ahead. Yeah.
Because when our minds are out of the way, and we everything just be, when we're not, when we don't have attachments, or our known attachments are gone, because I agree, this stuff runs so deep. But we do get to have a say so when there's no resistance.
Yeah.
There are other aspects of us, all us. We figure we're one big vast field.
Yeah.
There are other aspects of ourselves and other dimensions, and we have the right, when an idea comes in, to say, doesn't feel, not feeling it,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
We
We're the boots
have
on the ground. I'm
boots
with
on
you
the
on that.
ground,
I
right?
tell them
Like,
all the time, I'm going to have some say so here, because I'm the one down here doing it,
right.
not
And
So
And that's the part people don't always understand, because you got to move into sovereignty. And of course, that's just,
absolutely.
you've had that so many
Yeah,
conversations with people.
yeah,
When we move into sovereignty, we do get to say so. I mean, we
absolutely.
cannot control what happens in our lives. I cannot control, my husband ran a stop sign yesterday, right? Because he wasn't paying attention. I have no control over that. And we weren't hurt out here. We
Good.
live in the country.
He got an ass chewing now because I've done that
No,
before.
no, I didn't. He knew.
What's wrong with you men? No, I'm kidding.
No,
I'm joking.
I don't do that. But, we cannot control what happens. There are some things that are going to happen to us that are just going to happen because it's part of what we signed up for. It's
Yeah.
just part of the deal. So I
Yeah.
want people to understand that I'm not suggesting that because we do move these adamantine particles, God particles, and as long as we're in these bodies, this is a transitional phase.
Yeah.
So the only thing we can control is how we move through these situations, right?
Yeah.
So we can either struggle and resist, or we can say, well, whatever, I'm going to make the best of it. And then, focus on something that makes us happy, which is really why we're here.
That's
What
right.
if everybody just focused on what made them feel joyful?
Everybody Wang Chung, man.
Yeah,
I'm just,
exactly.
all
So
right.
anyway,
Tell us where I'm just it's my fault because I got over here and I did the scheduling, which I haven't done in
no, no worries, no worries.
and so thank God she'll be back tomorrow. And I've stacked everything, not accounting for,
Oh, good.
So where do
People,
we find you? You said it's called the Quantum Entrepreneurship.
yep. So,
And where do we
well,
find you? What are you getting into? What would you like to share with us?
um, here's what I would say. I'm changing the URL on my website. So my website will be, I don't know how long it'll take, but it'll be Wanda Vitale. You can find me on Facebook. I have a public page, Wanda Vitale, and my timeline, Wanda Vitale. My website for now is, my last name is Vitale, so we're changing it, but my website is vitalenlightenment.com. That will soon be
Yes.
wandavitale.com. So
Yes.
people can just, people can just reach out. Let me know what you're interested in. I've got a couple things coming up. I've got a group now called the Quantum Mindset, and because of the people that showed up, it's really a quantum entrepreneur, where we're focusing in on business,
Yeah.
creating, imagining business.
Right.
Marsha Wade with Star Sister Astrology and I are planning a group. Marsha is a soul sister and is an incredible astrologer. And since most people are in the place where they still need to know, and that's okay because it's just part of the process, astrology is a really good tool to understand what's going on astrologically and to maybe, tune our lens to
Yeah.
certain energies to be aware of. So I'm going to talk to her this week and we're putting something together. So
Right on.
um, really, I mean, we're here to have fun. It's really,
That's right.
that's my answer to everything. If it feels like fun, that's your thing. If it's
Yeah.
crystals, if it's grid work, if it's gardening, if it's whatever, it's really not all that complicated. We make
Yeah.
it complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the beautiful simplicity of the infinite mind, not the complicated bullshit of the finite mind.
Yeah. And, this whole thing of like money, no money,
Mm,
new systems, a mix, uh, all these bubbles of reality, it can be anything.
yeah.
That's just it. All of
Yeah.
it's
You can live
all,
in it. You can live in it or go live in another one. Right.
yeah,
And you're right. You're right about that. This is quantum. So the observation, the observer, the energy the observer carries forward is the reality. So if you're in a box, say, taxes, if I'm in the box of taxes, then it's going to be in my environment. If I'm not, it's not. And you know what? If I'm wrong, then I'll be damned. You know what? I'll die that way because I'm not going to live in that freaking box anymore or
yeah.
whatever
I
box
mean,
it might be.
Yeah, there can be, well, I'm not going to pay taxes. They're going to be, okay, I'll pay taxes, bring me more money. There's that.
Yeah, that's right. That's
It
right.
can be
That's right.
anything. This is just
Uh,
it. Reality
it,
is smoke and mirrors.
everybody's experience is relevant, and everybody's alignment looks different. And I still say that you know what, we could very well all be beaten at the same vibration. It just doesn't look that way, you know, because the minute we start saying, hey, they're not awake and we are, we're the one feeding the monster. I'm
That's
sorry to
right.
rush out of here. It's great seeing you. We're going to be heading that way. It looks like maybe April, maybe June.
Cool.
There's a bunch of stuff going on in New Mexico, but I'll hit you up on it later.
Hit me up on it later. Okay. Thanks. This has
You
been
take
fun.
care. It's good seeing you. Thank you for all your work. Everybody get over to the Quantum Entrepreneur group. If you need to get in touch with Wanda and you can't, hit me up and I'll put you together with them. Take care.
Bye bye.